CWPA Remote Professional Edition, where we take a look at water polo players and where they are today.
This man was a swimming scholarship member of the Indiana University of Pennsylvania Crimson Hawks water polo team. After graduating in 1983 with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, Marketing, and Management Information Systems, he began a 36-year career with the Navy. That career ended last year with his retirement as the Director of Intelligence and the Chief Information Officer. I'm so very pleased to be joined today by Vice Admiral Matt Kohler. Matt, thanks so much for being on CWPA Remote.
Hey, George, thank you. It's an honor for me to be here.
And an honor for us to have you. So, how and why did you end up choosing Indiana University of Pennsylvania?
It was a point in my high school career. I was swimming, water polo playing. I was looking at options that I wanted to pursue as a major in what I thought I wanted to do as an adult. And IUP met all of the kind of categories I was looking to address. Right size school, not too big, not too small. And offered me a kind of wide breadth of choices in terms of majors. So it seemed like the right fit.
All right. And do you remember your first water polo practice there?
I certainly do. It was an eye-opener for me, arriving and playing.
And anything particular happen in the practice?
Yeah, so you would have to understand the where I came from. So my hometown, very proud of my hometown, Erie, Pennsylvania. It's a small town that's on Lake Erie, the part of Pennsylvania that sticks up into Lake Erie. It got the record for snowfall 2 years ago. We're very proud, go team. Played water polo there, but as I found out, it was a little different kind of water polo than was played around the most of the country. It was the rules were a little bit different, and so I kind of learned that after 4 years of playing in high school, and then showed up on deck at IUP with some players who've been at it for quite some time, and they're just looking at me like I had three eyes on my forehead about why are you doing this? So I find myself having to relearn some aspects of the sport. Made it a little bit challenging. I was not expecting that.
And do you remember your first game?
I can't really exactly the first game. They were a series, so they're usually tournaments that we played in just series of games. And it was really my first year was just a series of adapting my skills and really making it to help for the team. It was that we had a really good. I guess the real start of the season, we played Slippery Rock. College. They end up being kind of very good partners for us, where we would play non-official games, scrimmage games, where we would work and became very kind of close friends with the other teammates. Russ Thompson was one of the interviewers who played for Slippery Rock, and that became kind of a unique experience for us. So I think my first game might have been a scrimmage, and that was pretty well received because I think I needed a little bit of warm up on that.
And I do like to ask this question because it's funny how half the people absolutely remember it to a T and half the people have no recollection at all. How about your first goal?
I do remember my first goal. It was a mighty powerful, notable event. One of our lead players, a senior there, took a shot. It was blocked and the ball pretty much dropped in front of me and I shoved it into the goal. It was fabulous. It required a high amount of skill, and I was able to score. But hey, we'll take a score as a score.
Hey, you know what? Back then, it was a score sheet with a tick on it, so it looked like every other tick. Now, I like to ask also about single best memory or best couple of memories while you were with the Crimson Hawks water polo team.
The nature of the team, it was a club sport. It was not a varsity sport. We felt like we played at a level of varsity. We did. But the fact is it didn't have all of the financial support on this. So when it came time for us to travel to these tournaments, and we went to some great places. We played at the Naval Academy. We played in Fordham. We played in Bucknell, Penn State. To get there was not funded. Right? We didn't have buses, airplanes. And so we got there by any means at our disposal, which means we jumped in friends' cars, back of pickup trucks, and off we went. And so these were adventures, and not at that age, a lot of young men playing with probably a lot of maturity, mental maturity anyway. There was no real plan other than this was the place we're going to play. This is the first game. You get there. And so each tournament was a unique experience of how that happened. I don't recall any of us never not getting to where we needed to be on time without adult supervision. And so the memories really were that. It was getting to the game and absolutely, playing our best in that experience, but it was always wrapped around that experience of what happened that. And we find talking with my former teammates, my friends still today, no story about a water polo game is not told about the context of about where it was and how we got there and what happened.
All right. And were there any disappointments along the way?
I don't know if there were disappointments. We had one tournament we've been playing well. I think we were at Syracuse, and we showed up expecting, hoping to do well. And our first day was just a disaster. It was one of those times where the team was not clicking, not performing well. And we held up well. We did not turn on each other. We held up our teammates. We went out and tried to solve that problem by staying out late. Way too late. And all of that plan of finding places to stay that night fell apart. I think we ended up sleeping on the gym floor, a new low. But we got back up that day and we played some of our best games that day. So I'll say kind of disappointment matched by, ability to come back well. It was one of those life lessons that says, yeah, you can do it. You may not have a great day, just get back up again and do it.
Yeah, lemons in the lemonade.
Yeah.
So last thing about your college career, I'd like to find out if you want to take a sort of overall perspective review of your college water polo career, including anything that might have been unusual or humorous during your time at UIP.
Yeah, I would have to say it was the nature I just described about what happened in these events. It was like watching a juggler juggling too many balls. You expect something's not going to quite work out in terms of getting to the tournament, but we ended up doing that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't pretty getting there oftentimes, and you came back fairly tired and from a weekend. But I think that was our kind of experience. I think that's what kind of really made more than just a normal experience of playing well together as a team, kind of a real bonding experience for all of the players.
Well, it's a kind of experience we've all been through, actually. And, well, maybe not all. I guess some of the D1 schools with lots of money never have to worry about that. But before we get into your long and storied career with the Navy, can you tell our viewers about what happened immediately after you graduated with your business degree?
So I finished IUP in 1983. And I studied, it was a business degree with a focus on computer systems, and felt as I was getting into my last year, this is what I would do, and started having conversations with firms around the area, Pittsburgh and others. But I had always had a strong interest in serving our nation in uniform. It was perhaps maybe the nature of me growing up on a waterfront and, sailing, racing, doing all those things. That led me down this path, and I pursued it. And so there are three ways to get a commission in the armed services, and including the Navy. You can go to the Naval Academy, you can go through an ROTC program, or after getting a degree, you can apply for officer candidate school. And that was the path I took. And so I had been accepted into my senior year, and so I kind of knew my path as I was leaving. And so I still had a little bit of time between my graduation and before I went down to Pensacola for officer candidate school. And I was able to use that time to kind of semi-coach water polo and swimming and stay connected with the team. And that was a really special time for me. It didn't last long, a few months, but at that age, that seems like a long time. Mm-hmm. And that was my path.
Well, you got into it obviously, and early on, you spent time with the National Security Agency. Now, I know there are huge parameters on what you can say and what you can't say, but can you tell us a bit about how you got there and in general terms what you did?
Yeah, so I came into the Navy, accepted as a Navy intelligence officer, and ended up going through a commissioning source the way I described. So I think a lot of folks really appreciate, and it's very well received on how much they appreciate their armed forces, but I don't think they understand it very well. So the way I would describe to you, if you gave me a couple hours, I would fill it, George, because who doesn't like talking about their career?
Right.
But it's divided by tours. Tour lengths are assignments to a command at a location, anywhere from 1 to 2 to 3 year assignments, and then you go on to your next one. And so my tours include at sea. My first tours with an F-14 Tomcat Squadron. It was when Top Gun, the movie, came out. It was a glorious time. I deployed with the Marines in places like Somalia when it was hot there, and then deployed with carrier strike groups after 9/11 into places like Afghanistan and Iraq. Short tours included places like you mentioned. I worked at National Security Agency, Fleet Cyber Command at Fort Meade. I worked at Special Operations Command in Tampa, Florida. All different locations. Worked in London for several years. Worked in Stuttgart, Germany. Both my kids were born in London while we were there. It's all part of kind of growing a family. All along this way of this career was my wife. Married about the time we came into the Navy. She was a swimmer at IUP, and that's how we met. And married not too long after college. And so it's that kind of experience. All along the way, George, is again, I think there's a perception that people come into the military thinking to be a lifer. That's a great intent. I don't know anybody who really believes that, but you don't get to just hang out. It's like water polo, where you work hard to maintain and develop and advance your skills to fight for a position in the lineup. Right? Everybody's valued on the team, but you're gonna try and work for that position in the lineup. And so at every tour, you focus on what you do. You work part of the team to get their mission done, but you're constantly being assessed. You're weighed and measured, ranked 1 through N of your peers. And you are assessed through formal promotion and assignment processes. If you don't promote for a Navy officer, you'll be thanked for your service, and you'll be looking for another line of work. So it's a competitive process, and while you're measured individually, the key part is you're assessed on how well you work getting your team to get its goals done. So my experience in water polo is you can take a team of superstars, and if they're not performing well as a team of average players like myself that are working well together as a team will outperform you. And that's what I found really worked and helped for me in my career. Was from first day one was, I understand how this works. This is challenging. This is dynamic. I need to do the best I can, but it's not at the expense of my peers. It's getting that team there. It's getting that point on the board that you talked about. That I found very natural, only because of my experiences through water polo. I would say, I think maybe your experience, since you said you started playing in college, my expectations is that you were a swimmer before that.
That would be correct.
That was kind of my experience. Swam since I was 8 years old, and then started getting into water polo as I got into high school. So swimming taught a lot, perseverance, working through long hours and the fatigue that helped. Water polo really came on top of that, but really kind of getting into all of that, but as well as working in a very dynamic, constantly changing environment. I think water polo really helped type focus and hone those skills. So getting thrown into new environments, every tour was completely new location, new mission, new people. You got in, you adapted, you figured your team out, figured out what you could do to help them. And that's what you did. George, that's what I did. If people call that a successful career, I'll consider that a win. But that's really was my experience.
Well, based on you saying that you get assessed everywhere along the way and you only get promoted if you do well, the fact you got to be the director of intelligence and the chief information officer probably says you were doing pretty well at every stage of your path.
Well, I was fortunate. Again, it was supporting teammates in getting there. I consider myself fortunate to be able to get into that position. And then, as you grow through that, just one thing that the military really does for you is they will put you in leadership positions very quickly, almost right out of the gate as a junior officer. And so not only are you figuring out how to help your team, you're learning how to form and build teams. And the getting to the basics of getting a team that may not be performing as well as they should be. Again, water polo helped me through that. Let's get to the basics, right? You get to the basics of how do you mentor somebody? How do you train somebody along? One of your teammates may not be the best passer in the world, but he's a hell of a gun, right? He's a great shot. Nobody comes complete with their skills. And so having that kind of approach, again, helped me kind of say, yeah, I know how we can form a team here. I know how we can take some of these disparate skills in each of the teammates and make them work better. That's what helped. That's what helped me, George.
Well, as part of your long time with the Navy Intelligence Division, you helped create new concepts to modernize the Navy for the information environment, including overseeing the creation of the Naval Information Warfighting Development Center. And I can't believe I got all that out in one sentence.
You did very well.
Can you tell us a bit about the path into that and what it meant to do what's involved in that long title, to the extent, of course, that you're able?
Yeah, it parallels an evolution in military thinking, right? In decades past, maybe in our Cold War timeframe, it was all about how many weapons and guns and ships you could bring to the fight. What has happened with the rapid proliferation of technology, information processing, they're recognizing that information itself is powerful, right? What a Navy intel officer does is, who's your adversary? What are the capabilities? Where are they? What are their intentions? Marrying that with the ability that I had from my computer system background that says this, okay, you may know, but how are you getting that information collected? How are you processing it? How are you getting it to where it needs to go? That was the path the Navy chose early, probably about 14 years ago, started saying, hey, these different skills that look like they're separate, like IT, and then these information guys, intel guys over here, they all look like they're separate. No, they're really all together. And bringing the power of that information together is critical. The advent of smart weapons, all these kind of things are all converging to that. The Navy got lucky and thought about this and reorganized themselves earlier. And so I kind of rode that wave as I was becoming more senior as a captain, and as I was promoted to Admiral in 2010. The Navy was just forming that. So I was asked to bring those together. I was the first flag officer at an admiral at the position at a specific position at NSA, formed Fleet Cyber Command in its very early days. And then combining a community. So altogether, the information warfare community, which I led in my last tour, was about 52,000 folks, bringing them together. And then getting them to operate as a team is something, again, that will challenge any leadership skills, no matter how much experience that you've had. So that's kind of the path of the Navy recognizing the power of information and what it does. I think whoever rules and dominates the information environment, if there is a next engagement, we hope there won't be, but wherever that happens, whoever dominates that information type of environment will likely be the successor in that engagement.
So we know how you got to the top because you get assessed along the way and they keep promoting you. Do you have any say in which kind of job path you're going to take? Because Director of Intelligence, it's a pretty high ranking job. How do you get installed as Director of Intelligence? And then, of course, in general, what are your duties?
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's actually a strength within our Navy intelligence and our information warfare community is that you do have a lot of say-so. So again, describing a career as a series of assignments, when it comes time for your next assignment, I finished my F-14 squadron tour, and within about 6 months of near ending there, after about 2 years or so, I'm speaking to an individual who controls those assignments. And you start a dialogue that says, here's what I would like to do. I would like to live here if I possibly could. Are there job openings there? That kind of thing. And that dialogue happens. I end up becoming one of those assignment officers later in my career, which you look at the teams out there and say, okay, I got a position opening. It looks like these 5 individuals may fit the bill. And then you start that kind of dialogue. That kind of continued through my career. And as the director of naval intelligence and leading information warfare, I continued to manage that at a broader scale. And then I had managed about 20 other admirals and their assignments. So there are different levels. There's 1 and 2, 3, and 4-star admirals. So I had about 19 at the end of it, 19 admirals taken care of. So everyone gets assigned. Everyone gets a chance to have a dialogue about what they would like to do. They may have unique requirements, special family members, things like that. You take all that into consideration. But it is all about trying to get the right person into the right job. And just like kind of stepping into the next water polo game, it's, if your next assignment, if you don't feel uneasy about it, like you don't quite have that mastered, you probably don't have the right assignment. Next job needs to be the next rung up the ladder, a big step up for you, a challenge for you to keep you growing professionally. And that's kind of been the goal. And almost every case that I find people rising to the occasion when that challenge is given to them, I find them rising to the occasion and performing well.
All right. Well, 2020 was the year of a lot of cyber attacks all over. You retired, but I guess interested people would like to know, since you've been retired, have you been called upon for your experience to help out in any way?
Yeah, it's kind of just in my DNA since my experiences with swimming and playing water polo. A natural migration into wearing the cloth of our nation, George, is to serve. I will continue to look to see if I can help. If there's a team that needs assistance, it's a compelling pull for me. Whether it's a business or I always remain on call for anything that our nation needs for any advice. But I find myself in that kind of capacity of consulting, advising kind of capacity. If I can help, I certainly will do that.
Well, it's great to hear that you're willing to do that, especially after such a long career. So you touched on it a bit. I'd like to find out how you feel your college water polo career impacted on your overall working career.
I think I could touch it in pieces along the way. Again, I found it just developed the right mindset for me. Constantly looking at a problem from a glass half full perspective. I just found most of my teammates to be optimistic, willing to get in there and never giving up on, even if you're behind in a game, you just keep playing, right? You keep doing what you can. That kind of, I think, perspective, it doesn't come just completely natural. For some folks it does, but just the years of swimming and water polo just kind of reinforced that. And I felt I never lost that kind of experience. It was always fun whenever I went to kind of any environments that I worked with, any of my assignments, when I connected with someone else who had a similar experience, a former water polo player, a former swimmer, and there was an immediate bond there, a bond of shared experience without even speaking about it. The hours in the water, the hours on the road traveling to the games, all of that was immediately there. I had an experience of connecting with a very demanding, I was then a 2-star, 4-star boss that I had. And once he found out that we had the shared water polo experience, he played for the Naval Academy. We kind of compared notes, and I think we figured out we had played against each other. And I kind of kept my mouth quiet because I think I remember a few games that got pretty physical. And I was trying to remember if there's a time when he and I might have gone kind of toe to toe. Probably. I think he went to the same mental calculus, and we just let it go at that. But it really is something that is very helpful, I think, professionally. It's not going to make up. It's not going to give you, if you're not the right person for the job, that's not it. But it does allow you to come with a very common bonding kind of experience that I think is unique to the kind of experiences that water polo players and swimmers experience, and that there is a bit of a network out there that I found to be helpful.
Okay, well, have you ever wound up in a situation in your working career where you stopped and said to yourself, you know what, I can draw from that and whatever that is from my college water polo experience, and then you were able to deal with the situation? Has that ever arisen?
Yeah, continuously, George. It was even from my very early days. I mentioned in London, I was there as a junior officer, and there was a group of us, Navy intel officers, and there's not many of us. It's a small, relatively small group. And so there was maybe a dozen there, junior officers, again, even more rare, but it was just kind of what we were doing. Our job was then, as this Cold War time frame, was focused on the Soviet Navy. And so I think we realized as a team that we were working, but not working as a team. And came into the environment, and it wasn't me that did this one. They were all tremendous people, fascinating. We're good friends to this day. And we just didn't wait for our bosses to tell us something. We just started saying, look, we need to start working on this one. And what immediately went back to was, how do we work on our basics, right? Our basics aren't quite squared away. Get the passing, the catching, the shooting, all of that. And then just start covering each other. When, you could take the shot, but you said, no, this person's in a better position. I'm going to give that to them. I'm going to let them take this to the boss and explain this to them, helping them all along the way. It's amazing when you take your ego, you put it in check. When you make the pass instead of taking the shot professionally, how much the team starts to spin on itself and starts to building. Every one of those junior officers went on to become at least captains in the Navy. 2 admirals came out of that group. So they were very, had the skills to work, but really need to come together as a team. And I found that once you feel it, when you feel a team that you played with and you know that you're playing well, like that tournament I described to you, you know you're not clicking, right? It's just not happening. Right. But you come back and it works. Once you experience that in a sport and you experience that professionally, you always want that again. And you will constantly always look to try and figure out, if it's not working, how do you do it better? The feedback I got from my seniors was, that seemed to be a strong suit of, working, building teams, things like that. I found that to be very helpful. It's not a soft pitch. It takes a lot of hard work, and it takes a lot of some direct conversations to make that happen. So it's again something, once you experience it, once you've learned it and felt it operating, you want to do that again. You want to create that again. Right.
Well, interviewers like to ask people in your position, not literally the position, but at your stage in life and career, what advice would you give to your younger self? But I kind of like to approach it from the exact opposite way. I'd like to know what you think Matt Kohler, college water polo player, would tell Matt Kohler, retired director of intelligence.
Having just retired a few months ago, it is a period of reflection. And you always look back, and those that want to continue to get, to always continue to improve, tend to sometimes focus more on the negative than the positive. And so sometimes in the effort to try and continue to improve is, I think I was hard on myself when you fail to succeed, whether it's swimming or water polo, and it's okay to kind of challenge yourself, but not be too hard on yourself. Look at it from a more positive perspective, because too much negative self-reflection cannot be healthy. I think I was okay with it. I think I would have been more positive in that regard, and I think I could have been a more effective teammate in those regards. But that's tough language for young people. I have just found that through my experience leading junior officers and junior enlisted, we had these kind of challenges where they were almost too negative in what they were doing and trying to bring them in a more positive developmental track. And maybe that could have been my experience. But would I have changed anything in what I've done? George, I can't think of a thing. When you first made the offer and extended the hand for this interview, I was thrilled. A little bit of a question mark since I was extremely average as a water polo player, wondering what you'd want to, what I could offer into the conversation. But my next feeling was just reflecting on the great time I had playing water polo. I don't remember. I remember less the wins, maybe a loss or two. Playing the Slippery Rock women's water polo team was humbling.
Yep.
But
you're not the first person to say that.
Oh, they were terrific. That carried with me, by the way, in the teams in my professional development. Women in our Navy and our armed service are incredible. We are so much better off and so much better that we've now expanded all fields open to women. We've now unleashed half of the capability of half of our population. I mean, how could you not take teams forward like that? So that kind of feeling just washed over me, saying, "Oh, every time water polo is like that." We had a great, like you, we had a great goalie. It was the only reason at IUP that I think we did half as well as we did. A guy named Greg Kinsler continues to be a good friend. He's still playing water polo today, Greg. He's 60 years old, and he's still getting in the water and playing. And so it's not just me, not just you. It's just anyone I think who's been in the sport cannot, I think, carry this very positive outlook of going forward and taking what they've learned into whatever professional track they choose to go to.
Well, finally, we do have lots of high schoolers and their parents watching who are looking at colleges, potentially with water polo. And we have current college water polo players who are looking at careers afterwards. What advice would you give these people?
I would recommend, one, whether you choose to continue water polo in college or not, do something, right? And I can't think of anything better than water polo, but perhaps you and I are extremely biased in that. Going to a school that allows you a swath of majors to orient towards was very helpful for me. I thought I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to go pre-law. I want to do all this kind of stuff. And, I started taking different classes and said, I don't think I really like that as much as I thought I would, but I really like this. And being able to orient yourself. Playing water polo and playing and swimming at IUP gave me, without doubt, a discipline, a focus. Still had our moments as young men and women of enjoying ourselves in college life, but very much provided that kind of rigor, having that balance to the point when I got to a point in the Navy where I was doing assignments. I was also looking at screening students in college that were applying to get not just a commission in the Navy, but they want to become Navy intel officers. I wasn't looking for named colleges. I was looking at interesting at kind of what they studied. Did they perform well academically? Didn't have to be 4.0, but did they perform well? And then I looked for something very important, which was what else did they do? What else did they do that rounded out their experience that would give them that kind of ability, that experience that they showed that they could step into a team, understand the environment, and adapt and learn. Those things are what I look for. So coming into college, I would look for that experience. Definitely do extracurricular activities, not to pad your resume, but to absolutely get the experience you need out of it. There's a big difference. And then coming out of college, it's that kind of experience, the demonstrated experience of being able to perform on a team, in oftentimes arduous circumstances when you're tired and perhaps your team is behind. That kind of experience.
Well, great advice indeed. He followed up his college water polo career at Indiana University of Pennsylvania to become head of Navy intelligence and the recipient of multiple medals for meritorious service. Vice Admiral Matt Kohler has been my guest today on the CWPA Remote. Matt, thanks so much for taking the time to share your insights into college water polo and its impact on working careers.
Thank you, George. It's been an honor to spend some time with you here this afternoon.
And an honor for me to spend it with you, for sure. Until next time on CWPA Remote, this is George Gross Jr. wishing all of our viewers the very best in and out of the water.